So please, Ashish, keep track of time. I'm a professor. Sometimes I get carried away. What I like to do is I like to speculate on the future of global finance. And it's a dangerous thing to do, to talk about the future. But, my parents named me Bhagwan, so I guess I'm allowed to do that a little bit. Question we should be asking is, what is it that is going to be different in the coming decade? And I'd like to leave you basically with one key idea, which has guided my thinking, and I hope it would be helpful to you as well. The main thing is the difference between finance and technology is going to merge. Is Amazon a finance company or is it a technology company? Okay, we need to think about that a little bit. The key idea is this. There are two ways of making money. And when it comes to finance, we are basically talking about intermediation, right? I'm a finance professor and people often accuse us of saying, hey, you don't produce anything. Why are you making so much money? All we do is intermediate. What does intermediation mean? We bring buyers and sellers together. We bring savers and spenders together. So both investments and ability to save and ability to invest just involves bringing different types of agents in the economy together. Is that important? Should it be important? Should we not just only focus on giving money to people who are actually producing stuff? So I'd like to leave you with one analogy. The answer is no. The big money on the table is in intermediation. So I'll give you an example. The shirt that I bought has a little logo on it. It cost me about $40 to buy. Can you guys guess how much it cost to produce this? $5, perhaps. Let's add shipping costs to it. Maybe another $2. Even if I were to stretch it, I would come to maybe $10, right? With all the costs involved. But I paid $40 for it. What do you think I paid the extra $30 for? I paid it for intermediation. I paid for intermediation. Somebody who was marketing, somebody who was trying to figure out whether I like blue or red, somebody who was trying to figure out, do I like a logo or not? Do I want it in a shop in Bangalore or not? I paid an extra $30 for intermediation. Now I want you to think about this. That is a big part of what I paid for it. So if you were going to ask me, where is the money in intermediation in the next 10 years? It is in that part. It is not in finance. Guys, this is a session on finance. I'm going to argue finance is not where the money is. Because finance will get commoditized. And everything that gets commoditized, the margins shrink, and they will keep shrinking until they are just about enough to cover your costs. So what's going to happen to banks? Well, banks will have to talk to Amazons and Googles of the world because it's all about intermediation. And the key to intermediation is going to be information. So let me proceed on that. So there are two ways of making money: cost efficiency and monopoly power. Money in cost efficiency is tiny. The margins are tiny. So I'm going to do what professors do, which draw a graph. But I'm going to draw a graph in the air right now because I don't have a board. So you have a demand curve that looks like this, right? And then you have a supply curve that cuts this demand curve, and that's where you get quantity and price. All of you might remember this from your undergraduate days. So where is the money? The money is where demand hits the supply, nothing is left. Only thing that is left is if it costs me $10 to make it, maybe I will add a little bit of my cost, and if I can get efficient at that, I'll make some money. That way of making money, cost efficiency, is important, but it's going to favor large players, not small players, because large players can squeeze those margins a little, but if I'm selling millions of things, I can still make money. But monopoly power is where the big money is left. So when I say the demand curve is this, that's what I'm willing to pay, even though the cost of producing is much smaller. In economics, we call that the consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is all goes to the consumer. But in the future, if you want to catch some of that consumer surplus, you need to catch part of that difference between willingness to pay and what it costs to produce it. And that's what we call monopoly power. So monopoly power, which comes from information, is what's going to give you money. And that's what the Amazons of the world are all about. When they're selling you stuff, they're not just selling you stuff, they're also learning about you. They're figuring out, what is it that you're going to buy next? What is it that you're willing to pay a lot more for? So when you combine finance and e-commerce, the money is going to come from e-commerce, not finance. On the finance, I'm going to offer you better and better and better and better terms. That will favor the large players, the Googles and the Amazons of the world, and bankers will have to figure out how to talk to Amazons and Googles of the world. So efficiency favors large players, and technology will commoditize it, so those margins are going to get tiny. And the tech players will get into finance for sure. Are banks going to survive? Well, banks are already threatened by fintechs. They are already threatened by payments banks and neobanks. Banks will survive only if Rajesh Bansal lets them survive. Because regulation is what protects banks. So banks are going to complain, it's not fair that payment banks have all these advantages. It's not fair that you're giving all these advantages to fintechs. So every now and then they will complain to RBI and they will get a little bit more money. But you know what? That game is not a long-term game. Sooner or later they'll have to give it up. But key is information. If you are able to get information about what people want, there is still money left on the table because you can price discriminate. In the existing models, you could not price discriminate because you don't know enough about individuals. So you have to sell everything at the same price. So all the consumer surplus disappears. Now what the tech companies are saying is, they're saying, we'll get to know you based on what you're buying, based on what you earn. And you think they're doing you a favor? In fact, it's the opposite. When they learn about you, they will bundle the product in such a way that it would look attractive just to you, but not to your neighbor. Because they know something about you that's different from your neighbor. And they'll be able to charge you a premium, which is nothing but a price discrimination scheme, a monopoly. That's where the money is going to be. So, who's going to win this game? Well, I need to predict. I need to come up with insights about what is it that people are going to buy. And the old methods of getting these insights were to use what we call stereotypes. You know, these type of men like to buy these kind of shirts, these kind of women like to buy these kind of shirts, and we use stereotypes. But we know from a great book by Kahneman, the great work by Kahneman and Tversky, we know that we have biases when it comes to stereotypes because we only look at what exists. And then we get survivorship bias. We don't see what has failed. And we don't incorporate that in our stereotypes very easily. Similarly, we like to extrapolate. Whatever is now, we think it's going to continue. But the world changes dramatically, and you're not able to extrapolate well. Some of it is countered by what we call experience. We say, you know, Bhagwan is wise. He's old and he's wise. And he's able to take care of these failures. But these old methods are not going to work. The new methods are going to be data. The data is big data. It's real-time data. And it's alternate data. What does it allow us to do? It allows us to get these insights in a way that is more systematic and less subject to bias. So you probably have heard this saying which says, data is the new oil, which I think is the wrong analogy. As Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw has pointed out, she said oil is depletable, but data can be used again. So she likes to call data the new renewable energy. And I'll go one step ahead of Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, not in a way that you think. I mean, she's still ahead of me. I like to think that data is accumulative. It's better than reuse. The more data you have, the more wisdom you have. So I think data is wisdom. So I'm going to close with this, that the new data methods using statistics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence are going to begin to dominate experience and stereotypes. And whoever can play this game better is going to make money decades from now. Okay. But of course, I'm just left with last minute. Since you have data, we have to worry about security, and blockchain methods and cryptography are going to be important. But the main thing is going to be data ownership. Who owns the data? If you allow Amazons and Googles of the world to own the data, they will capture the market. But if you give the data sovereignty to individuals, we are going to be back to square one. Somebody will need to ask you, what is it that you prefer? And that will give advantage to small players again. The new method of getting gossip is not to go to a bar and talk to 5 people. The new methods are going to be to listen to millions of people. How do you have a beer with 1 million people? You scrape the data. You scrape the insight from Twitter, news feeds, Wikipedia. Look at the company annual reports. So bottom line is, it's all a game of global versus local. If everything becomes global, the relationship banking will disappear. Small players are benefited by local insights. And local insights will only come if somebody is able to learn things about you in a local way. So that's what I'd like you to leave you to think about. Predicting the future, as I said, is difficult. We tend to overestimate what's going to happen in a year. So Ashish, if you invite me, again next year, we'll see if I was right or not. And I think you'll find that I overestimated it. If you invite me 10 years from now, you'll probably find that I underestimated the future. The future has a way of going far beyond our imagination, which is the theme of our conference. Again, it's easy to reach me. My name is Bhagwan. I'm everywhere. No, I'm at ISB, and I'm also on Twitter, and I have a website called Bhagwan. Thank you, Ashish.